You've probably seen the posts on LinkedIn. SEO is dead, and the example is usually HubSpot losing tons of traffic. And they are not alone. To really investigate what's going on, I pulled in Sam Dunning for this episode. Sam is one of the leading experts on SEO here in Europe, and today he's shedding light on what's actually happening in the world of SEO. This episode is super educational, especially if you're not a marketer. If you're thinking about SEO as a channel or are already relying on it heavily, this is a must listen for you as a revenue leader. And if you are a marketer, even better, we'll dive into 3 concrete tactical projects you can launch right now to tackle your SEO challenges head on. Enjoy.
Everything's dead. The SEO's dead, cold calling's dead, outbound's dead, paid media's dead, demand gen, RIP. A lot of the time though, it's when I see these kind of posts on LinkedIn or similar, it's folks shipping something that's like the polar opposite of that service, which is quite ironic. SEO, LLMO, GEO, AIO, whatever you want to call it, no one's cracked it yet. A lot of folks are claiming to be experts, but there's so much new stuff going on with it that no one is yet because it's so early. People will do their research. So when they have a problem, they'll do it on ChatGPT and they'll kind of evaluate it internally. Instead of clicking through to your website, like with a Google search, they might just go directly to your website, like your homepage, because they now know your brand. Direct traffic is going up, but you can't attribute it to LLMs. It feels more like we're moving into a mindshare era.
So it's actually really great to finally have another dad on the show again. So since Raoul was basically the new co-host after Mikkel, I feel I can finally have some dad talks with my next guest here, Sam. Hey, really nice to have you.
Oh, hey, Tony. Looking forward to it, man. Appreciate you having me on. I'll have to crack some subtle dad jokes, which I'm sure won't be subtle. They'll just be terrible, but good fun.
And I don't think we will need to, focus on that. I think that will just happen, actually. But let's just jump right in, right? I mean, you are obviously the go-to guy for all kinds of SEO topics, so search engine optimization topics. And I think what has happened in this space lately is really interesting, which is really why you and I wanted to jump on here. There's obviously lots of AI stuff going on. We'll talk about this in a little bit. But I think before we go there, the big thing that I think a lot of people, that are avid LinkedIn readers, which I know everyone on this podcast has seen, is HubSpot traffic dropped dramatically. A couple of other pages dropped dramatically. I think it even got to the point where the HubSpot CEO stepped up and put something on LinkedIn to explain it. And obviously that for everyone means, oh my God, outbound is dead, whatever is dead, SEO is also dead. What's your take on that, Sam? Bring us some reality check, please.
Oh yeah, for sure. Everything's dead. Just like you say, SEO's dead, cold calling's dead, outbound's dead, paid media's dead, demand gen, RIP. A lot of the time though, it's when I see these kind of posts on LinkedIn or similar, it's folks shipping something that's like the polar opposite of that service, which is quite ironic. But truth be told, I mean, SEO, is it dead? Well, it's still driving pipeline for us and clients, but it's changing. It's changing massively. It's probably the biggest shake-up in search in the last 10 plus years with, like you say, the rise of AI, LLMs. So Google rolled out AI overviews about a year or so ago, which really kind of disrupted search. As you mentioned, a lot of things, especially the HubSpot blog, got impacted because they had a lot of top funnel informational based content. And in fact, I think one of their top articles was around like marketing jokes, or it was something like that, something super vaguely related to HubSpot and marketing, and their blog traffic like tanked a ton because Google AI overviews is basically giving folks instant answers above the fold to those simply answered kind of top funnel informational queries. And Google AI mode rolled out a few weeks back at the time of recording in the US and a couple other countries, which is basically Google's version of ChatGPT. And of course, more and more folks are using ChatGPT, Perplexity, LLMs to get responses. But Google is still the beast. Old habits die hard.
Yeah, I was about to say that, right? I mean, there's obviously, all of us that are in the echo chamber, in the bubble, that are like, oh, wow, OpenAI, that's really the go-to place for like searching stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like the vast majority, and I saw something, Perplexity was obviously on the way up, but it was still like 97% is just normal search. Is that stat, does it still hold up? I'm not sure if you have like an updated version of this, but what's the newest on that?
Yeah, the problem is there's a lot of skewed data, and the last big report that we looked at was Rand Fishkin and SparkToro and Datos, who are part of SEMrush. They did a report. This was a few months back now, and their report basically shared that Google still gets 373 times the amount of searches compared to AI tools. And I think even if you combined all the LLMs together, be it ChatGPT, Perplexity, and so on, that's about 2% of the market. Yeah. So, like I said, old habits die hard. People are still kind of used to using Google when they need a solution, when they have a problem, when they're kind of comparing vendors or have some level of sales intent, they still go to it. But that is changing. It's changing a lot. And yeah, the landscape it isn't going to stay like that for long.
So exactly. And I think the other obvious piece, like, we probably have more RevOps, sales, and sales and founder kind of folks on the show here that are listening than marketing experts, right? But
sure.
I think the other super obvious piece, and I think you mentioned this, is should people still go to Google and search there, but they're now getting served up a really great answer that doesn't require anyone to click on the link where it actually came from, right? So basically kind of Google is building a product that more and more is actually kind of, keeping people on their own product, which then obviously that's not what you intended with that blog post that you wanted to write. So, right. So to a degree, the question that people are asking now themselves is like, should I be doing SEO? Is it the right thing for me? Is it, does it make sense for me to get into the game now? Or should I kind of do something else instead? Kind of what's your breakdown? What's your decision tree here for, who in the audience should be going down that path and investing money in this, and who maybe shouldn't?
Yeah. So I'm one of those weird SEO B2B marketers that often says on sales calls, look, SEO is not a great fit for your company. Whether I'm speaking to a revenue leader, a marketer, or maybe even a founder, there's many scenarios where SEO just doesn't make sense. And we can talk about this kind of high level, then break down kind of what measurement models you should look at. So when it comes to SEO, there's a bunch of scenarios where it just doesn't make sense. And one of those is, first and foremost, if you're creating a new category. So if your solution is not known by your target prospects, and that's simply because Google is best placed as a demand collection engine. So most folks have probably heard the 95-5 rule. At any one given time, 5% of your total addressable market are in market. Google is always best placed to capture those folks that know they need your solution, have crisp and specific problems you solve, are comparing vendors or shortlisting vendors or looking to switch from a current supplier to another. That's when it's a beast. But if folks don't know your offering exists, then you're way better ignoring search for now and kind of working out where your dream clients spend their time, get their trusted information, and start building that awareness around problems you solve, why you, and all that good stuff.
And maybe this is a silly question. I just wanted to interject this. When we're talking about SEO, we're specifically talking about the optimization, which is basically organic, right? Kind of you put out content, you try and optimize it towards the algorithm, and you want to rank high for no money, basically. But when you kind of talk about for whom is search right and for whom isn't, those are kind of the same things though, right? Whether you spend money on ads or kind of use SEO, if you create a completely new thing where no one would actually be finding you through a very specific problem, would you generalize it to say like then probably search in general is not a good idea for you?
Yeah. I mean, I would say there's no point doing like Google Ads paid search, or there's no point doing organic search. Which we can talk about kind of the benefits of in a sec once I've talked about all the time where all the reasons to steer clear of it. But yeah, you're right, exactly. So if folks aren't necessarily aware of your solution, your category, maybe it's something new that you're creating that hasn't previously had demand for, then you're way better off kind of spending your marketing dollars or your sweat equity kind of doing that customer research and working out where your prospects actually spend time, get trusted information, and spend time on those channels, because search isn't going to be for you until they're more aware.
So let's assume people listening are in a super competitive field. I think most of them actually are. I think most of them are like 5-10 million plus. And usually when you're at this scale, someone is like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Let me do the same thing, right? So there usually are competitors around.
Yep.
So let's get through some of the obvious objections that people have with SEO nowadays, right? And I'll just rattle it off one by one, and you kind of, maybe we do like a quick fire response here. But doesn't it take forever to build SEO?
Yes and no. So let's pretend you're in a super competitive category. For example, I don't know, calendar scheduling software, something like that. Chili Piper, Calendly, there's huge players. So if you went for, like, one of the broadest terms you could try and show up for would be like calendar scheduling software or calendar booking software. It's going to be super competitive, right? You're going to have Chili Piper, Calendly, beasts of the game that have been doing it for years, have a huge content marketing player, have a huge SEO engine, have tons of backlinks flowing to and from them. They have a lot of authority, a lot of clout on Google. So I always say, riches are in the niches. So there is ways to see impact with SEO as quick as 90 days. Yes, if you want to rank for super competitive category terms like calendar scheduling software, it's going to take you 6-12 months, perhaps longer. But if you can work out all the ways that a dream client might search, kind of less obvious ways where a dream client might search for your solution but aren't necessarily looking directly for the category, maybe that's part of industries that you serve best. So, for example, maybe you've historically served fintech well, or, I don't know, sales teams or accounting teams. So you go kind of the calendar scheduling in this case for fintech or for accounting. So you kind of niche down into industry. Or you know for a fact that on every sales conversation I'm hearing, we're getting sliced up against Calendly or Chili Piper or HubSpot meetings or whoever it is. Well, let's pick them off. Let's cheekily hone in on that demand. We know that people are switching away from this company because there's, I don't know, the customer support's lacking, or it gets super expensive when you go above 50 seats. So I know that if I try to rank for Calendly pricing or HubSpot meetings pricing or HubSpot meetings alternatives, then there's some demand to capture from annoyed prospects, and those terms can rank fast.
No, I can see that. So the next one would be. And this is like, probably like a year old now, but okay, super cheap to generate AI content. Let's use that to plow all of this in SEO, build thousands of pages, and let's see what works, what doesn't work, right? Kind of. But the thing behind that is like, isn't that going to get penalized by the search engine? Is this AI slop actually going to work out? Kind of, what's the take here?
In theory, it sounds great, right? Like, we can get this engine, pump out all this content, SEO, tick box, done. The problem with it is that although some of these tactics can work in theory, especially if, like you said, the folks listening in, revenue leaders, perhaps they want to share it with their marketing team as well. If you're selling a high ACV solution, people don't suddenly wake up and decide to spend 100 grand on software or tech. There's a painful process that goes on behind the scenes. They have problems, the impact of that problem gets too frustrating, they try to do something in-house, they cobble something together, that doesn't work. Eventually they realize that there's a new, better way, then they start evaluating. So let's pretend someone does go to Google, for example, searches for some kind of solution that's relevant to your niche or your offer. Let's pretend you did rank with an AI page. If they land on that page, landing page, article, whatever it is, and it's just full of crazy jargon like, we're going to turbocharge your revenues, we're going to 10x your performance with our all-in-one, all singing, all dancing, cutting-edge solution. It's like, this was written by a robot. It does not sound like a human. And I often say, look, you might be able to rank with AI content, but you're not going to resonate with your dream clients. So AI is quite good as a starting point to maybe build a page outline and get inspiration and maybe feed in sales call recordings, all that kind of good stuff to compile it. But you want some manual input to make sure that if you're selling a high ACV product and someone sees that AI slop, they're going to hit that page and they're going to bounce within a few seconds most likely. So you need that human interception where they can say, look, that's okay, that's not. We know that our customers have these problems. We know that they care about this. These are the main features. These are the main jobs to be done. And let's make sure we're weaving that into the page.
Hey folks, Tony here, dropping in from the future real quick. I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation with Sam, but this plug was just too perfect to pass up. So here's the thing, using ChatGPT to analyze your conversational data like call transcripts or emails is super powerful. But there are a few big problems. Pulling the data is a hassle, and you have to keep doing it every time there's a new call. You can't just trace specific insights back to a specific customer or prospect, and you can't easily slice it by pipeline, ICP, or rep or region. And that's exactly what we fixed here at Attiv. You get the structure and clarity of your CRM, but powered by the rich insight buried in your actual conversations. If you want to check it out, go to attiv.ai. And now back to Sam and our conversation. You know, in my head, there are a lot of, well, how do you then actually do it questions, right? Because on the one hand side, for me personally, like, it kind of makes a lot of sense to kick off some kind of a, you know, I'm going to call it agentic workflow that, you know, spins off a lot of websites and fills them with some kind of content that is optimized for the algorithm. Like, that makes total sense to me, right? And then you would look over this whole thing, you would see what works, and then you double down on the things that work. Kind of, that is like an intuitive, naively speaking, that's like an approach I can see people taking. Now, I think you already kind of created a caveat there by saying like, well, listen, if you have like high ACV clients, and if it's maybe not so many, if it's not a numbers game, then obviously kind of you need to think differently about it. But let's maybe dive into, I don't know, should we do this typical, oh, if I were to start over as a marketeer, here would be my 90-day plan to fix SEO. Kind of, what would you do stepping into an organization given that, yes, there's a sound decision that SEO is actually the right strategy? Let's kind of take that away, right? Kind of that decision was made. You have, you know, successfully not dissuaded them from doing it, and you kind of came to the conclusion that that's actually the right thing to do. What would you do now in order to get this thing off the ground?
I'll try and be as tactical as I can, and if I'm using jargon, feel free to dive in so I can simplify. So in most straightforward terms possible, what I would do is, if we wanted to start an SEO engine, like I say, we want to start with giving the quickest possible time to value, probably to our sales team or whoever deals with the inbound book calls, or for a PLG, then obviously that's a different motion. So we want to work out, I often do something called a money keyword matrix. So I encourage anyone who's listening or watching to fire up a simple Google sheet or Excel sheet, build out this thing I call a money keyword matrix. And what we're doing here,
I love it. I really love it.
What we're doing is we're basically working out what would a dream client search, not when they're messing around, not when they're information hunting, but then when they actively are in market for our software, our tech, or our service. So I usually, in the simplest way I can do that, there's a lot more to it, but let's say we split it into 4 columns. Column 1 is every way that a prospect can refer to our solution. So let's pretend that we're selling, I don't know, proposal software. Then that could be sales proposal software, proposal tools, proposal platforms, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's column 1. Column 2 is what industries do we serve best? So look through your CRM. What industries, 1, have the problem you solve, 2, are motivated to solve it, 3, actually have cash to easily invest in your offer, and 4, you've historically sold well into. So fintech, accounting, whatever. That's column 2.
So let's call that ICP basically, right? And like
ICP, the problem is a lot of companies have what they think is an ICP, and when they actually
right.
dive into the data, it's like,
you're right,
that's not our ICP, that's just who we want to be selling to.
Our ICP is Fortune 500 blue chips, you know.
Yeah,
because that's what we want to sell to, not that we're actually selling to them. But okay, got it. That's column number 2.
And then column 3 is competitors. This works specifically well in SaaS. So if you've got competitors that always come up on sales calls to an annoying level, those 3 or 4, in the proposal space, that might be Proposify, Quilla, PandaDoc, GetAccept, those kind of guys. That's column 3. And then column 4 is, what are our dream clients? This is moving a little bit more up funnel, but what are our dream clients' jobs to be done? Their struggling moments. So what are the problems they raise on sales calls? What do they try and cobble together in-house before they get so annoyed they need to evaluate a solution like yours? So in the proposal space, that could be building something out in Google Docs. That could be a frustration that, why aren't my sales quotes closing? Why aren't my sales team hitting quota? That kind of stuff, you know, problems and symptoms that your solution solves. So that's the 4 columns. So you've got column 1, offer, column 2, industries, column 3, competitors, then column 4, jobs to be done or problems. Why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because we basically want to exhaust every way a high sales intent prospect could be going to a search engine, or now LLM, and having intent to evaluate a solution like ours. And what you'll find is, like we touched on earlier, if we're in the proposal space, trying to rank for best proposal software or best proposal tools, whatever it is going to be competitive, because the big players, the top 4 that we talked about, are probably going to own the space. So that's why we make this matrix, because we want to make kind of longer tail variants of these. So whilst we might slowly chip away at, and like over time try and show up for best proposal software, but in the meantime, let's use the data we've collected to go for what we call longer tail searches. So that might be things like best proposal software or proposal software for sales teams, or for accountancies, or for fintech, or whatever those industries we've worked out are. That's one route. The other route that you're going to rank for even faster, in fact, recently we ranked a page in 72 hours, like top 3 of Google, going after this competitor strategy. So literally, let's say one of our competitors was PandaDoc. That would be quite tricky because they're pretty big, but maybe GetAccept. The ways these can work is GetAccept like alternatives, or GetAccept pricing, or GetAccept competitors, or GetAccept reviews. These work well because we know that customers churn. We know that prospects get annoyed with their vendor. Maybe that's pricing, maybe that's customer support, maybe that's something else, or they just know of that brand already and they're looking to shortlist 3 or 4 vendors to bring to their execs. That's why those terms work so well. And we can talk about how to create content for each of those pieces in a sec. And then the 4th one was, jobs to be done. So like problems, if that's around the sales proposal. I don't know. Why aren't my sales team hitting quota? How to build a sales proposal that closes within Google Docs, all that kind of stuff. Kind of niche, relevant, useful, problem-based content. And then this is all about building long-tail searches, keywords or queries or prompts that your dream clients are going to be searching for. And you'll find that a lot of these, from a Google perspective, have lower traffic compared to kind of real top funnel, like what is a CRM or how to build a website, but they have way higher sales intent, so they're more likely to drive inbounds. So that's a money keyword matrix. Then we can talk about how to build content.
So actually, kind of on this one, right? Who in the org would you give that to? Like, let's just say you're a CRO listening, and your first thing is like, oh, I'm going to give this to my marketing leader, right? And I would be like, yes, great starting point. But in my experience, and we can have a philosophical conversation whether or not that VP should be hired if they don't know this, but to a large degree, they sometimes actually don't know these things so super well, right? Kind of, what are the struggles? Kind of, what is our ICP? No one in an organization, as to our previous joke, sometimes knows that even, right? What it really is our ICP, not the ones that we want to sell to, but the ones we're selling to right now. Kind of in your engagements, did you what was it usually kind of a broader team you worked with, or kind of how did you build this for your clients?
Yeah, so we were working with a lot of kind of Series A, Series B companies, and quite often they're small marketing teams. Like maybe they've got like a VP marketing, a head of marketing, then possibly someone on content marketing. That's about it. At best, really. And yeah, so usually we work either the VP marketing, head of demand gen, something like that, I suppose to give some context. But quite often what I say is, if you've got someone from the sales team that can chip in this kind of exercise, it's always useful. Or if you can get access to kind of a few sales calls or transcripts that you can just feed into GPT and kind of ask for the key insights around these points, then that's going to save you a lot of time and pain. So you can kind of pull all these excerpts, and if you can get CRM data as well, that's going to help you as well. A lot of the stuff I talk about kind of goes above SEO, and it's just general kind of good B2B marketing best practices, like foundational stuff like know your dream clients, know their top 3 most expensive bleeding neck problems, know what happens if they don't fix it, know why they want to fix it, know the industries that have cash to invest in the offer and get the job done. And then that's going to build the foundation for helping you kind of craft messaging that resonates, not just on your website, but way beyond.
So this, what is it, the money keyword matrix?
Yeah.
Great. I really love that. So this was the kind of the quick money way, right? Kind of, this is how you as a marketing leader or you as a consultant can come in and kind of prove ROI real quick, I guess. What is the longer term stuff? Because it feels like there are 2 different routes to go, right? Kind of very much the long-term game and then the short-term stuff. you can probably do both somewhat in parallel, but what's the alternative, or what's the longer version here of this?
So I suppose in simple terms, you can get quick wins from kind of a lot of what I'm talking about is what's going to drive kind of pipeline for your sales team or signups, depending on your motion of your SaaS or tech company. So I suppose going back to those competitor searches, those can rank quite fast. And I suppose to tee up context, the way those pages usually work is that if someone searches, be it on ChatGPT or be it on Google for, let's say, PandaDoc alternatives, what usually kind of shows up is what's called a product listicle. And in simple terms, you might have seen these pages or these articles that say, we evaluated the top 10 PandaDoc alternatives of 2025. And the way they're usually structured is your product number 1 and then 9 other competitors. But where companies get these wrong is they'll put their product number 1, but then just kind of slate the competition or put in incorrect data about the others, and it's just not good practice. So this is where customer research is really key. So by all means, put your offer number 1, but actually leverage insights like for why folks choose you from that stuff we talked about earlier, like problems you solve, others don't. Maybe the kind of pricing point, maybe the customer support point, all those kind of pain points, jobs to be done that your customers care about. Feature your product as well, so folks can actually see under the bonnet. So many SaaS companies just don't show their product properly under the bonnet on their website. Like, we want to see screenshots, we want to see GIFs of the aha moment where your product clicks into play, maybe even kind of a live demo integration. And then also I'd want to weave in like a customer case study of someone that switched from that company. So they switched from the vendor to you. And then, have a fair assessment of if it is the top 10 alternatives, the other 9, have a fair assessment of those. But those can work quite well. So those can rank relatively fast from our experience. Then longer term stuff is kind of trying to show up for more category based terms. So like high level, like in the proposal space, best proposal software or best proposal tools, it's just going to be dominated by the big players. And you can build a landing page that maybe follows the problem agitation solution route, like you're facing this problem, this is how we're equipped to solve it, here's some examples, here's why we're good. Maybe an FAQ section at the bottom that leverages kind of real questions that you get on sales calls, like how long setup, what's your guarantee policy, why should I choose you over the other big 3, all those kind of stuff. But even then, you're still going to need to build what's called backlinks to build up the authority of this page. And simple term of backlink is another website that's linking to you to this kind of focus term and page.
I tried this backlink thing once.
Yeah.
It's really, that's really difficult, right? But if I'm understanding it correctly, for the money keyword matrix, for that magic tool that everyone should use tomorrow, by the way, you don't necessarily need to require tons of backlinks, right? That's kind of it feels like a different play. Am I getting this right?
So those kind of more niche terms, like competitor alternative and stuff like that, quite often you can rank without backlinks just by building a powerful piece of content that I usually say just blows out the water whatever's ranking at the moment or showing up at the moment.
Yeah.
And leveraging some customer research, so it's going to resonate with your prospects. Doing what we call basic technical SEO. So all I mean by that is, let's say you're trying to rank for PandaDoc alternative, then in your website URL for that page, it would just be yourdomain.com/PandaDoc-alternative. You have one, I don't want to go too technical, but just one H1 heading, one tag that has PandaDoc alternative within it. Same for your meta title and description, and then you naturally weave it into the copy.
Yeah.
But that's the crux to it. There's more technical stuff, but I'll keep it kind of simple at the moment.
So let's turn the page a little bit. This was a little bit the old school playbook.
Sure.
That still works extremely well.
Sure.
Like, let's not forget, everyone listening, let's not forget this, right? Google has still the majority of the search contact, and those tactics here, they still work. So how does, however they're calling it now, LLM SEO or generative AI like there are all kinds of different things floating around. So the team, the community hasn't really settled on what to call this, but basically your brand showing up in someone's OpenAI prompt, or answer to that prompt, basically, right? How is that is it changing the game? What is different now that this is around?
Yeah. So there's a lot of difference. So I suppose there's a few things. I've talked about kind of, let's call it the old school playbook, which can still work to drive inbound and pipeline from Google. But SEMrush, I think it was Backlinko, have done kind of analysis, and they seem to think that LLMs will overtake traditional Google search by 2027. So it's something to be aware of, and something we should start building a foundation for. So I suppose the core difference between LLMs is with Google, now if you do a search, sometimes you might get an AI overview at the top, might get a Google ad or two, and then you've got the traditional 10 blue links to click through to external websites on the results page. Whereas LLMs, ChatGPT, etc., don't have that. When you do a prompt, when you do a query, instead of bringing up a bunch of pages, they're just pulling information from different sources on the open web. So, for example, I'd like to flip this and carry on, I suppose, the tone of context. A CMO historically might have searched on Google, show me the best proposal software. On ChatGPT, they might say, I'm a CMO at this company, I've got 50 sales reps, I'm struggling with XYZ pain points, I need ABC features, I need it within this budget for 50 sales reps, and please show me the top 4 solutions I can evaluate. Quite a lot more detailed. So there's a lot there to consider, and I suppose I should preface this with SEO, LLMO, GEO, AIO, whatever you want to call it, no one's cracked it yet. A lot of folks are claiming to be experts, but there's so much new stuff going on with it that no one is yet because it's so early. But the difference I'm getting at is when you do that search, you'll then get, like you said, these platforms are moving into more of a zero-click experience. So you're getting fed all the information you need without having to click through to an external website. Now, some of the information that's shown will be cited. So we'll say, like, we pulled this from this review site or this article or Reddit or Quora or Wikipedia, whatever sources they're citing from. But it's a lot, I'd say it's a lot more difficult to kind of clearly see that. Like, the links are quite small.
What you just kind of said out loud was something that was lingering in my head a little bit, but I couldn't quite put a finger on it. And I think you did this extremely well. I don't think people will go into ChatGPT and say, like, proposal software, and then just, wait, what's going to happen? I think they're going to treat it, just like you said, more as, their personal assistant, that, who knows their context. And maybe they're going to verbalize it, or the LLM knows their contracts already, that this is maybe a CRO in a mid-sized B2B, and knows all of those things. So therefore, the research is not going to be so who's the best. It's like, who really is the best for you, right? So I think that's a really, really important takeaway for people to kind of think about this. But what are the implications of this now? Like we talked about previously being super specific. Isn't that kind of the same strategy here now, or am I getting this wrong?
Niche and specific content's really good. So it's really nice. So I suppose there's a lot of nuance that we can dive into, but I'll try and keep it kind of as straightforward. Now, the thing is, because ChatGPT and LLMs, they're not kind of giving you the blue links like Google do. They're pulling different content from all across different websites. That could be articles, could be review sites, that could be, like I say, Quora, Reddit communities, all that kind of stuff, all in one. So it's a lot different playbook to classic SEO, because some of this is almost beyond your control. And what you'll find is companies that have built up quote-unquote brand have almost an unfair advantage going into LLMs, because they love to cite companies that have been mentioned loads in the press, have tons of positive reviews, like on the classic review sites, G2, Capterra, etc. Maybe have built up a solid community, whether that's Quora or Reddit, because a lot of people have talked positively about them when folks were asking for recommendations in different forums and different landscapes and such, and just have a lot of solid press because they've been going a while and have done a lot of PR and similar in the past. So if companies that have kind of been around a long time and have done that almost have an unfair advantage because LLMs are scooping all this past kind of ecosystem and just naturally think that they're the go-to. So newcomers have a bit of an uphill battle, and there is a way in, which I can talk about in a sec, but I suppose I should tee that up that brand is kind of really big, because LLMs don't care so much about backlinks, they care more about brand mentions. So if your brand and your category are consistently mentioned on different sources across the web, could be on your own website, could be on review sites, could be on Reddit, other forums, that has a solid positive impact.
Isn't that hilarious how the pendulum swings back almost, right? I mean, I feel like a couple of years ago, brand was like, oh, we need to fire those CMOs and we just need to have a performance director and that's it. And now it's like, oh, wait a minute. This new way of, how people discover you actually leverages that thing quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, two bad boys, kind of made the wrong decision there. But like, I can totally see that. Like, I can absolutely see how this is even a good way to figure out who's a good company, right? I can actually see that. Obviously, what those LLMs trying to achieve is give you the best possible answer, and I can see how that is actually a good way to get to the best possible answer for like with whom, with which vendor should you work with, right? Obviously nuances, and I get
Definitely
it,
nuances.
and please kind of go into this for a little bit, but I understand that is kind of the approach to figure out what recommendations to give you.
So with that in mind, let's keep this to, I suppose, to keep it specific, let's keep it focused on what folks might search on or prompt in these LLMs when they actually have sales intent. With that said, yep, if your company's been going a while and you know that the company's built up a lot of PR and brand over the years, you do have an unfair advantage because these LLMs are using all that training data that they've scraped from over the years, and that's woven in. But there is ways to game these, and I feel that there's going to be more and more over time that LLMs do to perhaps stop this kind of stuff, but at the moment it seems to work well. So one example, we touched on it, is making sure that your website goes deep on niche relevant content. So we touched on it a bit, but that's making sure your website is a really useful resource. So as a standard, if you're a B2B SaaS, then making sure that you've got pages for each and every industry that you serve, each and every use case, all the core features that prospects care about, all the main competitors that you go against, and all that good stuff. So I mean, that's good practice anyway, but a lot of SaaS websites are extremely thin on content, and definitely a pricing page. Pricing is huge, because if someone searches, let's say that prompt we just talked about, like, I'm a CMO, show me the best proposal software XYZ with these pain points for 50 reps, and filter them by pricing. If you're not showing pricing on your website, which I'm not going to name and shame, but there's tons of B2B SaaS that have pricing pages without pricing, it's being shown whether you like it or not. It's just being pulled from a third-party site. So it could be someone on Reddit, and that might not even be accurate data. It might just be from like 3 years ago where someone on Reddit said, actually, I wanted to upgrade for this SaaS tool for my 50 reps, and the pricing 10x'd. And that might be pulled into ChatGPT on the comparison, and you're getting skewed data just because you're too scared to show pricing on your website. And that's one case where kind of transparency is kind of key in these kind of things.
And I'm just kind of thinking down this rabbit hole now, because this is also new for me. When people write a website, they write it for humans, right? And you want to be concise, you want to be clear, you want to actually, I mean, we know the average attention span. It's like, maybe people skim the H1, H2 and, a little bit further down, but rarely, maybe they read the listicle, but rarely they read the full paragraph. It's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But AI might read the whole thing, actually. Should you be writing for an AI instead now when you kind of do this kind of content? And, to a degree, the reason why I'm asking is like, you can be way more elaborate. You can put way more stuff in there. You can be way more, going into details, because that thing actually will care about the details versus the busy executive that is just gonna, skip too much, back to TikTok.
Yeah, I think there's a balance, right? But I think getting that niche relevant stuff. So for example, if we're doing an industry page, i.e. our software for X industry, then we need to be more specific than we'd historically be, because people are going to be putting these detailed prompts. One, we need to chunk up our content on that page nicely, So it's split by headings and really easy for folks to consume with bullet points and nice graphics and all that kind of good stuff. So it's really easy to break down. And two, yeah, we need to make sure we're leveraging customer research to talk about like pain points that this industry might experience, kind of their jobs to be done, their motivators, the features they care about, the FAQs they're going to raise. So that's all covered. So if someone is doing quite a detailed prompt, our page does its damn best to make sure that some of that content could be pulled into an LLM. I mean, that was SEO good practice, but not many folks did it. So that's one important thing. And then without going too technical, there's something called kind of schema markup, which helps. It's helped search engines kind of read your page at a high level, and that seems to help a bit as well with some of these LLMs. So kind of making sure that your site has that as well. But yeah, it's a good point, kind of considering that more depth, more detail, more specific, but not for the sake of being specific, for actually what dream clients care about.
I think this is really helpful. It's really cool. Conceptually, people will be like, okay, cool. Actually, this makes sense. Yes, I can see how we need to, do a homework, kind of think a little bit differently of how people will search and consume. The next question, like everyone is going to ask, like, well, how are you going to measure that this thing actually is going to work, right? And there are actually two different topics around this. One is the analytics. So does it actually work, right? Kind of, are we now ranking higher, whatever ranking means in those AI prompts? What's your take on that for the current state of the art? And maybe something comes out tomorrow and everything is fixed, but what's your current perspective on this?
Yeah. Can I give one more tip before we talk about measurement?
Oh, yes, sure.
Just because this seems to be mentally good, is when you search for that kind of high sales intent stuff we've been talking about in LLMs, you'll notice that most of the time when you get the results, the citations, so the little links that you see being pulled, are normally what we call product listicles, like Capterra, G2, or maybe articles with things like we reviewed the top 10 proposal softwares of 2025. Those get cited a heck of a lot for these high sales intent queries and prompts. So if you want to start being more visible for your brand, build those listicles on your own site for every way someone can refer to your product. Make sure you own those lines in the water, and look to have a process to get on all of your competitors' sites that have those listicles, review sites that have those listicles, and so on. And a lot of that can be done not necessarily by paying. Yeah, some of them are paid to play, Forbes, Capterra, G2, but a lot of the times you can just do value exchange and sweat equity. So that's like, in my case, a lot of them are B2B SaaS SEO agencies of 2025 or SaaS SEO agencies of 2025. I go to a lot of founders and just say, look, I'll give you some kind of value exchange, like I'll add you to our article or something like that. And a lot of them are happy to do it. And it's just, at the moment, it's a really good way. If you can get that brand visibility across all of those that are relevant, it seems to be an unfair advantage. So just something to pass on to your marketing leader. But now, let's move into attribution and analytics. So historically on Google, it was, let's track, we've got our money keywords. How well are they ranking? Are they page one? Are they top 3 organic, etc.? How's the click-through rate? These are kind of leading indicators. How is the session time? Are they spending a few minutes on the page and then crawling through to the rest of our website, maybe checking out demo pricing, etc.? And then eventually lagging indicators. Are they signing up? Are they grabbing a demo, booking a sales call, and so on at a high level? Those were the kind of the leading and lagging indicators up to now. And it's traffic going up, of course, traffic and impressions. But a lot of websites, organic traffic is declining, at least for non-branded search. So when I say non-branded, I mean not their company name. Basically, someone searching a company name is a brand search. Non-branded search was typically very big in organic SEO. So like if you're Proposify or PandaDoc, you want someone to search proposal software and find you. That's non-branded search. But now, with the rise of AI search and LLMs, more branded search is going up. Websites are getting less click-throughs. Traffic looks like it's declining. They're getting less non-branded search. Impressions are going up, so views are going up, but that kind of non-branded traffic seems to be going down. And that's because these platforms want to give you that zero-click experience. They want to keep you on platform for as long as possible. Think of LinkedIn. LinkedIn organic reach is tanking like crazy because they're boosting more thought leadership ads and paid media content. Same for Google over time. I think ChatGPT is going to move more into a model of with agents and stuff like that without going too complex. I think they're going to take a percentage of kind of online store payments and maybe SaaS payments and that kind of stuff rather than an ads model. I digress. So how can you measure? It's very difficult with LLMs. So there are tools, like there's been a massive bunch of SaaS funded tools that have cropped up that claim to measure kind of what prompts people are searching for around your solution, how effective it is, what you should be targeting, that kind of stuff. I think it's very, very difficult. Href seem to have some good data around it, but it's still, because there's so many variants that people could prompt for your solution, it almost seems like at this stage like a really, really difficult feat, because there's so many variants that people could search. So what you'll find is there's a few things that are changing. I think the mindset's changing. I think what's going to happen more and more is people will do their research. So when they have a problem, they'll do it on ChatGPT and they'll kind of evaluate internally. Then they might say, like, show me the top 4 vendors, like with all this criteria alongside it, and then evaluate there. Then they'll discuss it internally. Then they might, instead of clicking through to your website, like with a Google search, they might just go directly to your website, like your homepage, because they now know your brand. So you might notice that direct traffic is going up, but you can't attribute it to LLMs or Google search or whatever, because people are remembering. To me, it feels more like we're moving into a mindshare era. So you want to build brand and mindshare around your product, the problems you solve, why your differentiators. You want to get all that external brand that we talked about. And then what are you going to see as a result? Maybe more direct traffic, maybe more branded search, maybe more traffic direct to your homepage. Yeah, there's things you can track, so you can make sure on inquiry forms you've got how did you hear about us, and you've got your sales team are asking again, like, what was the full journey you took before you discovered us today, to kind of collect that quantitative data. And yeah, there are kind of LLM data tools that claim to kind of get some prompt information, and Hrefs is starting to roll out similar. So there is some kind of analytical stuff you can do, but like most things in B2B marketing, it's rarely linear. So it's almost like you're piecing together the puzzle and realizing that kind of non-branded traffic is on the decline, and likely branded traffic is going up with what we're seeing.
So you're basically saying, forget about it.
Forget about it.
You know, you can't measure it. You really can't attribute it really well, which to a degree, I think you can be a cynic about it and be like, okay, well, if I can't measure it, then we shouldn't do it. Or you think about it a little bit differently and are like, well, maybe the way we've been doing measuring in the past was a mirage anyway. Like doing, I know a lot of companies that basically get like paid search as their main source and basically placed paid ads on their brand names, and then attributed this to paid search. It's like, that's actually kind of silly, that's probably not how this thing works for you, right? And to a degree now, we're moving almost away. Well, you can't attribute this anyway. So do the right things that you should have been doing all along. Almost do the right things. Put out the content, be specific, give information. So when this AI thing is doing the assessment of you, it is in a position to give the best possible answer to their customers, so to speak, right? It's like, I don't know, what's your philosophical take on this here? Is since none of this can be measured anyway, how should CROs think about it? Like, how should CEOs think about it?
I would say nothing's changed, but everything's changed. So it's like, do what you can to measure. So you can, like, if someone, for example, ChatGPT and similar, they do have small citations, small links, so you can click through to some of the information. So by all means, but the problem is some of that traffic or click-through doesn't always feed into tools like Google Analytics. That's a kind of hot topic at the moment, that it's not always feeding through accurately. So track as best as you can, use analytic tools and processes. Also measure the inputs. So measure the actual habits and activities that, if you've got a marketing team or if you're using a contractor or agency, that they're doing proactively to do this. So whether that's the money keyword matrix, whether that's doing niche and specific content, whether that's doing stuff outside of your website, getting featured on listicles, press, maybe you're doing podcast appearances, all this kind of stuff to build awareness. Maybe you're having a feed so you can be updated when someone posts on Reddit that's relevant to your niche, so you can get involved in that community and mention your brand when possible. So have processes that are going to move the needle, measure what you can, and realize that this isn't just relevant to Google, this isn't just relevant to LLMs, this is relevant to social media. all this kind of stuff, platforms want you less and less to click through to external sites. Know that that's the way things are going, and know that we're moving more, at least in my opinion, into a brand and mindshare game. So if you're getting more directed and branded search, that's good. Pipeline's probably gonna, if you're doing the right activity, the pipeline will come if you're doing it properly, but it will be more and more difficult to track. But then B2B marketing has always been difficult to track with high ACV. I get inquiries on my website where people put, how did you hear about us podcast? I ask them, they're like, I searched SEO agency, followed you on LinkedIn for 3 months, listened to your podcast for 6 months, forgot about it. My exec saw you on LinkedIn, eventually booked a call. Like, how do you track that?
So we're coming up on time here. Really, really insightful stuff. I think the last question I have, which is probably on the minds of everyone on this podcast, what's your dog called?
Yeah, he's featured in a lot of podcasts because he is mental. His name is Barney. He's a Cocker Spaniel, and he loves to bark because this house has got a lot of windows at pretty much anyone that walks past. But then when I take him on a walk, he's scared of every dog. So do with that as you will.
Wonderful. Sam, thank you so much for today. I think this was really insightful. We went really deep. And I think also for the folks that stuck with us to the end, got a really comprehensive understanding of what's changing and how it's impacting, you potentially as someone that wants to sell stuff. So thanks so much for that. If someone wants to follow you or buy your services, Sam, where can they find you?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Enjoyed the chat. So 3 main ways. One is Sam Dunning on LinkedIn. I post daily ramblings on SEO and what's working, what's not, memes, etc. 2 is the podcast Breaking B2B. Bit like this, I do solo episodes of kind of SEO strategies and what's working with my own experiments, my agency, and also interviews with SaaS marketing leaders, how they're driving growth today. And then thirdly, if you've kind of listened to me ramble on for the last 50 minutes and kind of thought, is there a way to shut him up? Or maybe you're just kind of tired of not driving a steady flow of organic search pipeline and want to start cracking that and driving kind of a steady flow of inbounds through SEO, then breakingb2b.com, we might be able to help.
breakingb2b.com. Sam, thank you so much. And thank you everyone else for listening. Have a good one. Cheers.